you've probably said it 100 times before. You're beautiful. It feels like the right thing to say, right? It's polite. It's affirming. It shows appreciation. But here's the truth. It's also empty, not because beauty doesn't matter, but because those 3 words have lost their impact. They've become background noise in a woman's daily life. Compliments like that are safe, predictable, and most importantly, they don't move her. What you need to understand is that desire isn't born in the obvious. It's born in the unspoken, the unexpected, the psychologically loaded spaces between words, the ones that reach under her skin and make her feel seen in a way she doesn't even fully understand. When a man tells a woman, "You're beautiful," what he is often doing unconsciously is placing her on a pedestal, hoping to be rewarded for noticing what every other man has already seen. She knows she's beautiful. She's been told since she was 12. She doesn't need another man reminding her. She needs a man who sees what others don't. Desire begins when a woman senses that you are present enough to witness something real in her, not her appearance, but her essence, her contradictions, her unpredictability, her energy. That's where arousal lives for women, not in how much praise they get, but in how deeply they feel seen. So what do you say instead? Say what touches the part of her that isn't on display, the part she doesn't advertise. Tell her the way you speak about things you love. It makes everything else fade out for a second. Or, I noticed how you pause before you laugh. Like you're always holding something back. It's hypnotic. Now you're not talking to her face, her makeup, her body. You're talking to her soul. And most men don't even know how to look there, let alone speak to it. What this does is powerful. It disorients her, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that interrupts the normal pattern she's used to. You've just stepped out of the category of every guy who wants her and entered the rare space of the man who actually sees her. And in that moment, she's not just flattered. She's pulled in because the part of her that longs to be unraveled, to be discovered, to be known, has just been awakened. Let's go even deeper. Complimenting a woman's beauty is rooted in the assumption that your value comes from recognizing hers, that you're trying to gain something, approval, attraction, sex, by offering attention. But true masculine presence doesn't operate that way. It doesn't seek permission. It penetrates reality. It speaks not to impress, but to reveal, to reflect something back to her that even she didn't fully grasp. This is what Esther Perel often touches on when she talks about erotic intelligence. The idea that desire isn't about what's seen, it's about what's imagined. It's about the psychological space that opens up between two people, when curiosity replaces certainty, when observation replaces praise, when presence replaces performance. So next time you're with a woman, resist the urge to fill silence with praise. Let her speak. Observe. Listen not just to her words, but to how she says them, her rhythm, her tone, the shift in her eyes, and then speak from that place. There's something about the way you hesitate before you answer. It tells me you think more deeply than you let on. That sentence does more for her arousal than 1,000 "you're so gorgeous" comments ever could. Why? Because it requires your presence to notice. It presents real grounded, embodied attention is the one thing most men are too distracted, too performative, or too insecure to offer. It's not that saying you're beautiful is wrong. It's that it's insufficient, it's surface level, it's lazy, and deep down women know it. What she wants is to be felt, not just seen. She wants to be engaged like a mystery, not a trophy. A force, not a feature. So change the script. Step out of autopilot. Speak to her in a way that touches what's hidden. Let her feel like you're tuning into something subtle, something sacred, not just scanning her for what's obvious. That's when desire starts to build. That's when she begins to lean in. And that's when she starts imagining what it would feel like to be fully opened by a man who actually understands the language of her inner world. Because in the end, it's not your words that get under her skin. It's your attention, sharpened, specific, and fearless, that does. We often think of desire as something physical, a spark, a look, a touch. And while that may be true for many men, for most women, Desire is something much more layered. It's emotional, psychological, even existential. It's not about what you look like or what you say at face value. It's about how you make her feel about herself when she's in your presence. And that feeling, when it's emotionally charged and deeply intimate, is what opens the door to physical longing. So if you're walking into a conversation thinking the goal is to be charming, impressive, or seductive, you're already missing the point. Women don't want charm. They want connection. And what turns them on more than your words is the feeling behind your words, the attention, the curiosity, the emotional courage to be real. This is where most men get it wrong. They think sexuality is about performing, being the alpha, being bold. But what creates true arousal in a woman is emotional depth. The kind of energy that says, I'm here, I'm grounded, and I'm not afraid of who you are underneath the surface. That's the masculine presence that draws her in, not the man who rushes to prove his worth, but the one who calmly witnesses her complexity and holds space for it. It starts with your language. Are you saying things that reflect observation, on and presence, or are you just throwing out compliments and hoping one sticks? Think about the difference between saying you look amazing in that dress versus there's something about the way you carry yourself when you're comfortable, like your energy fills the whole room without trying. One is surface level approval. The other is emotional precision. And precision is seductive because here's what no one tells you. Women are not craving validation. They are craving relevance. They want to feel relevant to you, not just as a body, but as a force. And that means engaging with the parts of her that are rarely touched, her ideas, her stories, her silences. When you say something that reflects that you've actually been listening, you unlock a part of her that most men never get close to. You activate her emotional imagination, and that's where desire begins. Now, I'm not suggesting you turn every interaction into a therapy session. This isn't about being heavy or intense for the sake of it. It's about being tuned in. It's about saying things that arise from your attention, not from your agenda. For example, if she's telling you about a childhood memory, don't just nod and smile. Say something like, it sounds like that moment shaped more than just your personality, maybe even the way you protect yourself now. That's emotional depth. That's insight, and insight creates intimacy. But let's be clear, this isn't a script. You can't fake this. You can't learn a few psychological tricks and expect women to melt. This only works when you're doing the real inner work yourself, when you're present in your own body, connected to your own emotions, and not afraid to be seen. Because the more emotionally available you are, the safer she feels to open. And the more she opens, the more she wants to be close to you, physically, mentally, sexually. Desire flows in the space where emotion are. Resonance meets masculine containment. She wants to feel you, feel her, not because you're trying to seduce her, but because you're alive enough to notice what others overlook. You reflect her humanity, and in doing so, you become desirable not as a body, but as an experience. You become unforgettable. This is what Esther Perel means when she says eroticism thrives in the space where there is curiosity, where there is exploration. Most men kill curiosity by reducing interactions to goal-oriented steps. But a woman doesn't want to be figured out. She wants to be discovered moment by moment. That's what arouses her, not being captured, but being caught off guard by a man who sees what's behind her eyes before he ever reaches for her body. And if you're thinking this sounds like work, it is. But it's the kind of work that separates men she forgets from the one she'll never stop thinking about, the one who made her feel something no one else could. So here's what I want you to remember. If you want to awaken desire, speak to what's underneath. Not the beauty she shows, but the emotion she hides. The thoughts she's unsure are safe to say. When you touch that with your words, with your eyes, with your energy, you become more than attractive. You become desired. And in that space, everything changes. One of the most misunderstood ideas in male-female dynamics is the belief that women are looking for praise, that if you simply say enough flattering things, she'll be drawn to you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Praise without presence is just noise. She doesn't need more admiration. She needs to feel your energy, your stability, your depth. And that doesn't come from telling her she's beautiful. It comes from showing up with a kind of quiet, grounded power that very few men know how to embody. When you say you're beautiful, what are you really doing? In most cases, you're seeking approval. You're hoping that by offering her a compliment, she'll reward you with attention, affection, or validation. But that dynamic puts you in the role of the perform and her in the role of the judge. You're offering something and waiting for her to respond. That's not desire. That's negotiation. Masculine presence is not about offering. It's about being. It's about standing in who you are with nothing to prove and nothing to chase. A woman doesn't fall for a man because he flatters her. She falls because she feels something when she's around him. She feels herself soften. She feels her guard drop. She feels safe, not because he told her she's special, but because his energy invites her into the present moment. This is why true presence is so much more powerful than praise. When you're present, you're not performing. You're not trying to be impressive or clever or seductive. You're simply there, alert, receptive, anchored. You're not distracted by how she's reacting to you. You're not trying to read her mind or manage her impression of you. You're just witnessing her deeply with no agenda. And paradoxically, that's what makes you magnetic. Because here's what happens when you stop praising and start observing. You shift the dynamic. Instead of making it about her appearance, you start speaking to her essence. You might say there's a quiet intensity in the way you look at people when you're really listening. It's disarming. That's not praise. That's perception. And perception, when it's authentic and precise, is intoxicating. She doesn't just feel seen, she feels known. And in that moment, attraction is no longer about your looks or your words. It's about the experience of being around you. Now, this kind of presence isn't something you fake. It's not a tactic. It's a way of being that comes from doing your own internal work. It comes from being in touch with your emotions without being ruled by them. It comes from knowing your own worth so deeply that you don't need to advertise it. And when you show up like that, calm, clear, deeply rooted, she feels it in her body. She relaxes, she trusts, and her imagination begins to open. What many men don't realize is that women are constantly scanning for emotional safety. Not safety in the obvious sense, but safety in the deeper sense. Can she express herself without being judged? Can she be raw or silly or intense and not have you flinch? Can she surrender to her own desire without feeling like she's being used? These questions are being answered by your energy long before she says a word. And that's why words alone are never enough. You can say all the right things, but if your energy says, I need something from you, she'll feel it and she'll back away. But if your presence says, I'm here and I don't need to take anything, I just want to witness what's real, she will be drawn to you with a force she can't explain. This is the essence of masculine containment, the ability to hold space without trying to control it. You don't rush to feel silence. You don't try to steer the moment. You let things unfold. And that patience, that stillness is what allows her to feel safe enough to come towards you, not because you pushed, but because you pulled her in, not with effort, but with essence. So stop reaching for praise. Stop defaulting to compliments. Let your words come from observation, not performance. Let your energy do the heavy lifting. Because when a woman feels your presence, when she senses your depth, when she experiences you as a man who's not trying to impress her but to understand her, that's when the game changes. And here's what you need to remember. A woman doesn't crave a man who tells her she's beautiful. She craves a man who makes her feel irresistible simply by the way he sees her. Be that man